A pregnant bride was auctioned for $5 until the silent cowboy bought her freedom and found his own. The sun beat down on the dry dirt of Hollow Creek, a small frontier town that stank of horse sweat, stale beer, and broken dreams. Wooden buildings leaned with the weight of years and indifference. A single bell rang in the distance, not a church bell, but the one they used for auctions and hangings. Today it was an auction. Men gathered like buzzards near the steps of the old county jail. Some smoked pipes, others drank warm whiskey from tin cups. They weren't here for cattle, nor wagons, nor tools. Today they'd come to bid on a woman. Annabel stood on the block, thin wrists bound in front of her, hair pinned back but loose at the edges. Her eyes didn't meet the crowd. They focused on a crack in the wooden platform beneath her feet, as if she could fall into it and disappear. Her dress, once white, had turned the color of dust. A small bump pressed against the fabric of her stomach. She was nearly 7 months alone. The sheriff stood nearby, hat tipped low to avoid the heat and the shame. His voice rang out, tired and flat. "Start and bid $5. Laughter rose from the crowd. "Hell, that's cheaper than a mule," someone jeered. "Yeah, but a mule don't come with a squalling brat in its belly," another shouted. Spitting into the dirt, Annabel didn't flinch. Her face was carved from stillness. Not numb, not weak, just still. The kind of stillness that came from a soul worn thin Tom Dawes swaggered forward, boots kicking up dust. A bear of a man, with a jagged scar running from temple to jaw and eyes that didn't blink when they should. He twirled a silver coin between his fingers, smiling like he already owned her. $5, he said. No one countered. The crowd wanted blood, not a bidding war. They wanted to see a man claim something that couldn't run. That's how power worked in Hollow Creek. Then, a sound, boots slow, deliberate, coming from the saloon porch. A figure emerged from the shadows. He moved with the kind of silence that made men nervous, like he didn't need noise to make himself known. He wore a long coat, dusted from the road, a wide-brimmed hat shading his face. A rifle slung across his back, a revolver holstered low on his hip. He said nothing, just walked toward the auction block. Tom Dawes narrowed his eyes. "Ain't. No call for interlopers, stranger." The silent man reached into his coat. The sheriff stiffened. The crowd hushed. Out came a leather pouch. The man tossed it at the sheriff's feet. It thudded against the ground, the unmistakable clink of coin inside. The sheriff stooped, opened it, blinked. $50. The crowd murmured. Whispers turned into murmurs, murmurs into grumbles. "Who the hell are you?" Tom snarled. The stranger looked up, just enough for the light to catch the sharp cut of his jaw and a line of old, unspoken pain in his eyes. He didn't answer. The sheriff shrugged. "High bid's 50. She's his now." Tom took a step forward. Stranger's hand hovered near his hip. Tom stopped. No. More words were needed. The silent man stepped up to the platform and unbound Annabel's wrists. She didn't move. He extended a hand. She looked at it, then at him. Behind him, the crowd lingered, disappointed. There was no show, just an ending they didn't get to write. She placed her hand in his. Her fingers trembled, but not from fear, from something deeper. Confusion, hesitation, hope. They walked through the parted crowd like ghosts, past faces that had no place in their story. At the edge of town, 2 horses waited his, and another, smaller one, saddled lightly, as if waiting for a passenger too small to fight. He helped her mount. Still not a word between them. The horses started westward, away from Hollow Creek, toward something unnamed. Hours passed. The silence stretched between them like a long, unpaved road. Dust rose with each step, clinging to their clothes and eyelashes. The sun dropped lower. Shadows stretched long. Coyotes howled in the distance, and the smell of sagebrush grew thick in the cooling air. Annabel finally spoke. "Why?" He looked at her but didn't answer. "Why did you do it?" She asked again, voice raw. He turned his eyes forward, gave the faintest shrug. She bit her lip. "You can talk, can't you?" He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He handed it to her. She opened it, frowning. The handwriting was sharp, deliberate. "I lost my voice in the war, but I can still hear." She blinked, then folded the paper carefully and tucked it into her dress. "My name's Annabel," she said after a moment. He nodded once. They rode until nightfall. When they made camp, he unsaddled the horses with practiced hands. She gathered wood slowly, carefully, moving like someone unsure if she still belonged in the world. He struck a flint, coaxed the fire to life. Flames flickered between them. She sat on the other side, arms wrapped around her knees. "I had a husband," she said. He met her eyes. "He went to war, too. Never came back. I waited. Every day. I kept writing letters. Never got one back." She reached into her satchel and pulled out a locket. Opened it. Inside, 2 tiny sketches, one of her, one of a young man with bright eyes. I buried the ring. When they told me he was gone, but I couldn't bury the baby. He listened, unmoving, his gaze steady. They tried to throw me off the farm. Said I couldn't pay. No man, no claim. I walked 3 towns before someone helped me. That help turned into something else. Her lips tightened. He leaned forward and passed her a strip of dried meat. She took it slowly, murmured, "Thank you." For the first time, she saw the lines in his face weren't from age, but from silence. Heavy, years-long silence. A man made of quiet things: regret, duty, memory. "What's your name?" she asked. He looked at her. After a long pause, he took a stick and wrote in the dirt colon coal. The fire cracked. Somewhere far off, an owl called. The next morning, they broke camp early. The plains rolled out before them, dotted with wildflowers and tall grass. Wind whistled low and mournful. Cole rode ahead, scanning the horizon. His shoulders were tense, always alert. Annabel rode behind, eyes on the back of this man who had stepped into her life without asking for anything. She didn't know what he wanted, or if he wanted anything at all, but she trusted him. And that scared her more than anything. As they crossed a narrow ridge, a storm brewed on the horizon. Dark clouds gathered like angry fists. Lightning cracked in the far distance. "We need to stop," she said. Cole looked to the sky, nodded, then pointed to a grove of cottonwoods, nestled in a shallow gully. They reached it just as the wind turned. Violent, rain came hard. Thunder shook the ground. Cole dismounted, quickly pulling a canvas from his saddlebag. He built a lean-to, using branches and the tarp, securing it as water poured from the sky. Annabel huddled beneath the cover, soaked and shaking. Cole joined her, their shoulders nearly touching. He handed her his coat. She hesitated, then took it. For a long while, they sat in silence, listening to the roar of the storm. It was the kind of storm that reminded you just how small you were. She leaned back against the tree. "When the baby comes," she whispered, "I don't know what I'll do." He turned his head. "I don't even know who I'll be." The rain slowed. The worst passed. She watched the last drops slide from the tarp edge into the mud. "You don't have to say anything," she added. He didn't, but he reached out slowly and placed his hand gently, hesitantly, on hers. It wasn't a rescue. It wasn't a promise. It was a moment. And in that moment, something shifted. Not everything, but enough. The storm ended. The sky cleared. Cole stood, offered his hand once more. This time, she didn't hesitate. They rode until the trees gave way. To wide fields once more. The world felt new, cleaner somehow. The air smelled of wet earth and distant blossoms. Night approached. They made camp again. No fire this time, just stars and silence. Annabelle lay awake, staring at the sky, one hand resting on her stomach. Beside her, Cole sat with his back to a tree, eyes open, rifle across his knees, watching, guarding, for now. That was enough. Far in the distance, a faint sound stirred in the wind hooves. Men. Maybe not tonight. But soon. Whatever they were running from hadn't given up yet, but neither had they. And that was the beginning. The morning broke gray and heavy, the kind of light that didn't promise peace. Cole stirred first, already upright, brushing dew off his coat. The air smelled of damp earth and distant pine. Annabelle stretched beneath her blanket, her back aching. The child inside her shifted with a slow, uneasy roll. A reminder that time wasn't stopping for either of them. Cole handed her a chunk of biscuit wrapped in a handkerchief. She took it gratefully, nodding instead of speaking. Words felt unnecessary between them now. Or at least, they were patient. Enough to let silence carry what words couldn't. They rode in long stretches, the landscape unfolding in waves of hills and sagebrush. By late morning, they reached the edge of a ravine where a narrow stream cut through the land like a silver snake. It was there. They saw the blood. It was fresh, smeared on the rocks and dirt along the bank. A trail of it, staggered and uneven. Leading into the brush, Cole dismounted, hand already on his rifle. Annabelle followed slowly, watching his back, her heart thudding. A few paces into the thicket, they found him. A man barely more than a boy was slumped against a tree, an arrow lodged in his side. His dark eyes opened as they approached. Alert but weak. His face was streaked with dry blood and dirt. The feathers on the arrow weren't crude. They were crafted with precision, colored with paint and careful cuts. Not a settler's weapon. Cole knelt without hesitation. Annabelle hesitated, one hand on her belly, the other clenched tightly at her side. Is he? She started. The wounded man tried to lift his hand, then winced, breath hissing through his teeth. Cole reached out, slow and deliberate, touching the shaft of the arrow gently. The wounded man flinched, but didn't pull away. Their eyes locked. Something unspoken passed between them. Annabelle moved closer, watching them, unsure whether to be afraid. Cole tore a strip from his own shirt and dipped it in the stream before returning to clean the wound. The young man didn't cry out, though his jaw clenched with every motion. He's one of them, she said under her breath. He's native. Cole didn't respond. He just kept working, binding the wound as best he could. The young man closed his eyes and leaned back against the tree. He was alive. For now, they built a small fire not far from the stream, hidden by thick trees and bramble. The stranger lay propped up, pale but breathing steady. Cole kept close, always watching. Annabelle sat across from them, arms folded tight. The fire popped once, sending up a brief spark. Why are we helping him? She asked finally. Cole didn't move. He looked at her, then at the man. Then he picked up a stick and drew in the dirt. He wrote, "Because someone once helped me." She stared at the words for a long time. Then, slowly she nodded. That night, the young man stirred. He murmured something in a language neither of them understood. His eyes fluttered, and then he spoke again, slower this time. "My name, Raven." Cole looked at him. Raven met his gaze, then gave the faintest nod. Annabelle frowned. "You speak English?" Raven gave a thin smile. "Enough." She chewed the inside of her cheek, then glanced at Cole. He could be dangerous. Raven coughed, a dry sound like wind through dead leaves. I bleed like you. That silenced her, not from agreement, but something closer to shame. They camped there another day, giving Raven time to recover. Cole hunted small game nearby and returned with 2 rabbits. Annabel helped skin them, her movements unsure but growing steadier. Raven watched, saying little, his expression unreadable. Later, while the meat cooked, Raven pointed to Cole. Don't speak? Cole shook his head once. Old wound? Another nod. Still you say much. Cole looked away, eyes scanning the trees. Raven sat forward. I was hunted. Not by yours. Others. From across the mountain. Why? Annabel asked. Raven hesitated. Because I left, she tilted her head. Left what? Expectations. War. Blood debts. He closed his eyes. My tribe called me Ghost Walker. I did not want to fight their war. Silence fell again, the kind that didn't feel empty, just full of truths too large to speak. That night, the fire burned low, and Cole sat apart from the others, whittling a piece of wood. His hands moved with muscle memory, shaping something unseen. Annabel joined him, sitting beside the flickering light. He trusts you, she said. Cole didn't look up. I think I do, too, she added softly. And that scares me. He paused in his carving, then passed her the piece of wood. It was a horse, rough but clear in shape. She held it gently. Is it for the baby? Cole nodded. Her eyes shimmered. Thank you. They rode out the next morning, Raven riding behind Cole on one horse. His wound had begun to knit, but left him. Weak, still, he pointed the way west, avoiding trails, guiding them through narrow valleys and low ridges. He spoke little, but when he did, it was with precision. Annabel grew quieter the farther they rode. Her eyes stayed on the land, but her mind was elsewhere. Cole watched her closely. Always as evening fell, they came upon a scorched camp. Ashes. Burnt canvas. A wagon's wheel half charred, sticking from the earth like a broken bone. Raven dismounted first, limping forward. He knelt, touched the blackened ground. 3 days old, he murmured. Annabel stepped back. Who would do this? Raven stood slowly. Raiders. Not my people. Others. Outlaws, men who wear no skin but greed. Cole examined the site. Bullet holes in the remnants of a trunk. Scraps of children's clothes near a fire pit. Annabel's breath hitched. God, Cole's jaw tightened. They buried what they found. Not bones, those had been taken or destroyed, but memories. A scorched doll. A shoe. Raven spoke once more. They move east. Maybe follow tracks. Maybe looking for something else. They'll come for us, Annabel said. It wasn't a question. Raven nodded. Eventually. That night, they built no fire. Just a circle of silence beneath the moon. Cole sat up, watching again. His rifle rested across his lap. Raven kept a blade near his thigh. Annabel lay on her side, curled around the swell of her child. Her breathing was soft, steady, but her fingers gripped the little wooden horse tight against her chest. Sometime before dawn, a branch snapped. Cole was on his feet before the sound finished echoing. Raven stood too, hand outstretched. Another snap. Closer. Annabel jolted awake, eyes wide. Cole motioned low. Stay down. They waited, still as stone. A shadow passed beyond the tree line. And another. Raven whispered. Scouts. Cole lifted his rifle. Annabel clutched her belly. The first figure stepped into view, broad, armed, cautious. His face was familiar. Tom Dawes. Cole's eyes narrowed. Raven whispered again. We go now. Leave noise. Cole nodded. They moved. Fast, Raven supporting Annabel while Cole covered their retreat. The forest swallowed them. For an hour they ran, careful and quiet. When they stopped, hearts pounding, they were deep in an unfamiliar ravine. A narrow cave mouth opened at one end. "We rest here," Raven said. "They will not follow without light." Inside, the cave was cool, dry, safe for now. Cole lit a small oil lamp. Annabelle sat hard, breathing rough. Sweat gleamed on her forehead. "The baby," she whispered. "It's early, but I think ... it's close." Cole knelt, eyes steady. "I'm scared," she said. He took her hand. Raven crouched beside them. "I will guard. You bring life. We bring protection." That night passed in labor, in breathless hours, in whispered prayers. At dawn, a child cried for the first time. Annabelle wept, clutching the newborn tight. Cole stood back, silent, his eyes shining. Raven leaned on the wall, arms crossed. "We live," he said. Annabelle smiled through tears. "Yes, we do." The world outside the cave still held danger, but inside, for now, there was peace. They had lost much, but something new had begun. And somewhere, out there, Tom Dawes was still hunting, but they were no longer running. They were becoming something else, something stronger. The child's cries softened as dawn crept across the horizon, bleeding pale gold into the mouth of the cave. Annabelle cradled him, her face exhausted, her eyes rimmed red, but lit with something new. The infant nuzzled against her chest, fingers no larger than rose petals twitching in sleep. Cole sat nearby, sharpening his knife with quiet strokes. The metallic rasp was steady, almost calming, like the tide coming in. Raven stood watch at the entrance. His silhouette was rigid against the sky, one hand gripping a short bow slung across his back. He hadn't slept. None of them truly had. The fire had been kept low through the night, just enough to keep the chill from the baby's skin. Cole had given Annabelle his coat. Raven had offered herbs to ease her pain, ground from a pouch stitched in deer hide. She'd accepted them without question. Now, with the storm of birth behind them and the fragile gift of life in her arms, Annabelle was quiet. Not the silence of fear, nor the numbness she once wore like armor, but a kind of reverent calm. Like something sacred had passed through her. Cole approached slowly and crouched beside her. His gaze fell to the child, and a smile tugged, small, fleeting, and yet more honest than any word. Annabelle looked up at him. "You want to hold him?" Cole hesitated, then nodded. She guided the infant into his arms. Cole took the child with cautious hands, as if he were holding the only fire left in a dying world. The baby blinked up at him, eyes dark and searching. For a breath, time seemed to stop. "He doesn't cry around you," she whispered. Cole looked at her, then back at the boy. "Maybe he knows," she added. "Maybe he sees what kind of man you are." A faint rustle from outside broke the moment. Raven turned his head. Footsteps. Cole handed the baby back to Annabelle and grabbed his rifle, already moving. Raven dropped low and motioned toward the rocks above the ravine. Cole didn't need instructions. They'd fallen into rhythm, a kind of wordless pact between men shaped by different scars, but bound by the same thread survival. They climbed without a sound, leaving Annabelle and the child tucked safely within the cave's shadows. At the ridge, they crouched among the brush and waited. The footsteps grew clearer. 4 men, all mounted. The lead rider was unmistakable. Tom Dawes, clad in dark leather, his beard thicker now, streaked with gray. A cruel gleam lived in his eyes, as if the world owed him something, and he meant to collect. Behind him rode 3 others, faces rough and sunburned, rifles across their backs, revolvers at their hips. One whistled low as they passed beneath the ridge. "They're near," he said. Dawes growled. I know that. Tracks don't lie. They've got a baby now. Slows him down. Raven looked to Cole. No words. Just a slight incline of the chin. Cole lifted his rifle, breathing steady. Then Dawes did something unexpected. He dismounted, walked to the cave mouth. Annabel froze as his shadow darkened the entrance. She backed deeper into the cavern, pressing the baby to her chest. "Come out, sweetheart," he said, voice oily. "Ain't no point hidin'. I got 3 men and not much patience. I offered $5 for you once. Ain't no reason I won't take what's mine now." She said nothing. The baby whimper-ed. His boot crunched closer. Above. Raven and Cole moved. A single shot cracked through the air. The man closest to Dawes dropped from his saddle, screaming, clutching his leg. Chaos erupted. Dawes spun, pistol drawn, but Cole was already on him. He leapt from the ridge, tackling the outlaw into the dirt. They hit hard, fists flying, limbs tangling in the scrub. Raven moved fast, an arrow already knocked. He loosed it in silence. Another outlaw fell with a gurgling cry. Gunfire split the air. The last rider scrambled to mount his horse, but Raven's blade was quicker. He moved like a shadow, driving steel into flesh. The man collapsed. Dawes rolled. Beneath Cole, landing a punch to his gut. Cole grunted, staggered, then responded with a crushing elbow to Dawes' temple. Annabel emerged then, standing at the cave entrance with the baby clutched in one arm and a pistol in the other one. Of the fallen men's weapons. Her hands trembled, but her eyes burned with resolve. Dawes, bloody and dazed, looked up at her. He laughed, thick and wet. "Look at you, little Miss Frontier. Think that gun makes you free?" "I already am," she said. She didn't pull the trigger. She didn't need to. Cole rose, towering over Dawes, breathing hard. The outlaw stared. Up at him, sneering. "You ain't got the nerve." Cole looked at him for a long moment. Then he stepped back. Raven stepped forward. He knelt beside Dawes, pulled a feather from his own pouch, and dropped it on the man's chest. "Now you walk," he said. "East, without horse, without water." Dawes sputtered. "You can't do this. You are not dead." Yet, Raven said calmly. Cole didn't intervene. Neither did Annabel. Dawes cursed them all, then stumbled to his feet, limping away, dragging himself toward the horizon under the weight of his failure. The silence that followed was a silence born of finality. No cheer, no celebration. Just the crackle of wind through the trees and the soft, rhythmic breathing of a newborn child. They buried the dead, marked no graves. That evening, they moved on. The cave had served its purpose. The baby slept as they rode, tucked in a wrap against Annabel's chest. Cole rode beside her now, never ahead. Raven took the rear, eyes always on the trail behind them. They came upon a glen as night fell quiet, untouched by violence, bathed in moonlight. The trees here stood tall and silent, like watchmen. A creek bubbled nearby. Cole built the fire. Annabel rocked her child. Raven sat across from them, expression still unreadable. "He has no name," she said suddenly. Cole looked up. "I've been thinking. Something simple, something strong." Raven's gaze turned toward her. "Names carry weight. I want him to carry hope." She looked to Cole. "I was thinking maybe you could name him." Cole blinked. Then, after a pause, he reached for his journal. He wrote carefully, turned the page toward her. "Elias." Annabel smiled. "Elias." She repeated it to the baby. He squirmed slightly, then stilled. They sat in the glow of the fire for a long time. Nothing else needed to be said. The next morning, Raven stood with his pack slung over one shoulder. "You're leaving," Annabel said. He nodded. "My road forks here." She stepped forward, holding Elias in one arm. "Thank you." Raven looked to the child, then to Cole. "You carry more than silence now." Cole stepped forward, hand extended. Raven took it, a silent goodbye, the kind that mattered. He disappeared into the trees, becoming a shadow once more. Cole turned to Annabel. She smiled softly. "Where to now?" He pointed west. She nodded. "Then west it is." They rode as the sun rose behind them. The road was uncertain, but they were no longer alone. Cole had once wandered without purpose. Annabel had once stood on a block, waiting for someone to decide her fate. Now they moved forward together, a family forged by fire, silence, and survival. And though danger still lived in the world, so did something else hope. Elias gurgled in his mother's arms. Cole glanced back once at the path behind them. Then he faced forward and didn't look back again.